Hi, everybody. Week number 16, our very last week of lecture, looking at ethical guidelines for psychological research. We saved a big one for last. These are really important, obviously, and things that we should be taking into account anytime we're conducting research in psychology. Definitely have not always been present. Some really awful historical examples, some core ethical principles that were developed out of them, guidelines for psychologists from the APA, ethical principles that emerged. And then ethical decision making, kind of a thoughtful balance that we have to have of weighing the pros and cons or the dangers and benefits of conducting research. Also, a little bit about animal research at the end as well. So, we talked about in the reading for this week and then also in the lecture on Canvas that there have been a couple of examples of some really shameful studies that were conducted. Probably the most infamous of all of them is the Tuskegee study. This was back in like 1932 to 1972. Excuse me, the purpose of the study was to observe the effects of the disease syphilis when left untreated to the point of death and autopsy. So 400 African American or Black men who were not informed of the nature of the study were monitored over that span of like roughly 40 years, and they were withheld from proper treatments, resulting in more than 100 of them passing away from the disease. So a lot of really unethical choices being made. And this is arguably cited as the most infamous biomedical study in the United States history. It led to the development of the Belmont Report, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. So very, very infamous, famous in a bad way. And some of their biggest unethical choices that they made was the participants were just not treated respectfully, right? It's okay to deceive your participants a little bit, but they had things that were withheld from them. They weren't treated with any kind of respect or dignity. They were harmed as part of this. Again, over 100 of the people participating died, and the participants were targeted. It was a disadvantaged social group that was purposefully brought in. Right. So again, probably, if not the most infamous of all of the studies that we have talked about or mentioned, the Milgram obedience one is another one, kind of illustrating a difficult ethical balance. And this one was harmful, not as harmful as the one we talked about just a moment ago, but people were lied to, right? They were very much deceived. And it was deemed necessary in order to get the results, right? If you believe that you are administering actual electrical shocks, then it's going to shape your behavior. Versus if you knew you weren't actually doing anything and it was an actor on the other end, you wouldn't have any hesitation, right? So the tricky part about this study was it brought up ethical questions about the idea of like debriefing and balancing the risk of participants to the benefits of society, right? There are times where, in order to find out information, you have to put a participant at a little bit more harm or a little bit more risk. And they were debriefed afterward, meaning that they were told that they didn't actually administer any shocks. Many of them cried out of relief. It was a very, I was going to say, shocking result, every pun intended. This was another very, very difficult study that led to a lot of questions being asked about how do we balance participants' rights with being able to find out the information that we actually want to know. So, as a result of both of these studies and many others, the Belmont Report was created in 1979, really looking at like principles and applications of respect, talking about informed consent, that people need to know what they're getting into before they agree to participate in a research study, the principle of beneficence, and the principle of justice. And we'll talk more about these on the next slide. But this was something that was a huge development and didn't exist prior to 1979. We didn't have these ethical principles to guide us in a lot of the very famous psychological studies that were conducted, which obviously struggle with some ethical and moral issues. So if we look at the Belmont Report's ideas of beneficence, justice, and respect for persons, in 2002, the APA went to five general principles, right? So they added to those three from the Belmont Report. So beneficence and non-maleficence, right? Treating people in ways that benefit them, do not cause suffering, conduct research that will benefit society. Fidelity and responsibility, establishing relationships of trust, accepting responsibility for your professional behavior in research, teaching, and clinical practice. Integrity, striving to be accurate, truthful, and honest in your role as a researcher or teacher or practitioner. Justice, striving to treat all groups of people fairly. Sample research participants from the same populations that will benefit from the research. Being aware of those biases, really big issue with that Tuskegee syphilis study. And then finally, respect for people's rights and dignity, recognizing that people are autonomous agents, protecting people's rights, including the right to privacy, the right to give consent for treatments or research, and the right to have participated treated confidentially. Understand that some populations may be less able to give autonomous consent and take precautions against coercing such people. So these five different APA principles, ever since 2002, are a really big part of research, and they need to be honored and considered in every study that is proposed and conducted. Also, really important to consider animals, right? Animals should have some form of legal protection, and they do, but it's not as strict as what we see for people. Animal care guidelines follow what we call the three R's: replacement, refinement, and reduction. Replacement using non-animal methods or less sentient organisms whenever possible. So if it's possible to use like a computer simulation or AI of some kind rather than an animal, to replace them and use it in that way. Refinement using statistical methods and better experimental designs to obtain data from fewer animals, right? So to use less animals when possible. And then reduction, modifying the experimental procedures to minimize pain, suffering, distress, and improve the welfare of the animals that must be used. Really difficult balancing the attitudes of like scientists and students toward animal research with the attitudes of like animal rights groups. So there's a lot of people who have fought for animal rights, and obviously there are some that are afforded, but again, they're not as strict or stringent as the ones we see for people. And there are some times where maybe we're using animals because it's deemed that it's less risky, but it's a balance, right? We have to ethically balance animal welfare, animal rights, and animal research, right? Again, weighing the different sides of it, the pros and the cons, is the benefit worth the drawback, right? And these are questions that review boards are constantly examining and discussing before they rule on whether or not an experiment is ethical or not. So, in conclusion, right, like ethical decisions are a balance of priorities, right? So, everything in this chapter becomes a balance, right? If you don't deceive your participants, can you actually get good results? If you don't put them in a little bit of danger or create a little bit of anxiety or create a little bit of like panic or whatever it might be, are you going to get meaningful data, right? And so it's this balance of priorities where we need to weigh the potential harm to human or animal participants against what the knowledge gained from the research will contribute to society. And this is something that, as I mentioned, there are international review boards for IRBs for, and you do make an application to these boards anytime you're proposing research that might put a group in harm in some way or create some kind of difficulty that needs to be discussed and weighed. So that was our last lecture, our last PowerPoint lecture video for the semester. As always, don't forget to do the readings for this week. Don't forget to complete the lecture video and click on anything that's in there, watch any videos that are in there, and of course, the discussion and other materials for this week. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for watching.